Hello students, and welcome to the CompTIA Security+701 Exam Course brought to you by Third Level Technology. I am your instructor, Jim Herbie. In this episode, we're going to continue in the exam objectives with a discussion of Section 1.3. Our topic is change management. Let's begin.
Change management is the term that we use whenever we have someone within our organization that wants to update or modify something related to our IT systems. Installing new types of hardware devices like routers or switches, updating software versions, installing new operating systems. And in the change management process, we have two different groups of individuals: change owners and stakeholders. Change owners are going to be the individuals that are responsible for beginning the change management process. These will be the people that have identified the need to update or change some aspect of our IT systems or security. Make sure that we are staying on time, that we are maintaining a budget. They will gather information about different types of testing, and they will be the individuals that handle the day-to-day operation of the change management process. Your stakeholders are going to be individuals within our organization that have some interest in the outcome of the proposed change, but they are not involved in the direct implementation of it. So your stakeholders can be your senior management. It could be representatives from any regulatory or compliance bodies. Anytime we have some type of change, it's going to impact many different aspects of our network, and the stakeholders will be representatives from all of these affected parties. The change management approval process has several steps. The first is the initiation. This is where we have a change owner that has identified something that needs to be modified, and they begin to gather the documentation to change some aspect of our systems. The second step is the change request. This is when you will submit a formal document that will outline what aspect of our IT system needs to be changed, why the change is necessary, and how much it'll cost. Your change request goes to a group called the Approval Board, or sometimes called the Change Board. And this will be a group of individuals that will have the ability to approve or deny our change request submissions. In the approval process, if we get an approval for our request, then we have to do implementation, which is when we will execute the outlined tasks for the proposed change. And then we will test and validate any change we have made to our systems. So the approval process has several different steps, and as we go through this episode, focus on one of these different steps in the change management process. Next, we're going to discuss impact analysis. This is where we are going to identify all of the different ways that a change to our systems will affect the entire organization. We're looking for both positive and negative outcomes from the proposed change. Impact analysis is very important with risk assessment. This is where we will give priority to certain types of potential security risks based on their vulnerability, overall impact to our systems. After we have implemented our change and we have done analysis on how it's going to impact our systems, then we have to do our testing. This is where we will be able to get honest outcomes of how our system changes are affecting the entire organization. And by analyzing all of our different test results, we can verify that the change that we have proposed has been implemented successfully. Creating a change management proposal. One key component is having what's called a back-out plan. A back-out plan is sometimes also called a rollback plan or a contingency plan. A backout plan is when we have counter some type of failure during the proposed change. This could be if we are installing new type of software, maybe our operating system fails to load. If we're installing a new type of hardware device like a router or a switch, how can we cancel our current change and go back to a point in time where we knew our network was working properly? So the backout plan is going to be all the different steps that we take to be able to revert to a prior configuration in time. Your backup plans should have full data backups of any type of information that you are trying to update, versions of all of your different applications that you can revert to as well, in case you have any kind of issue with your operating system. When we get to the point in time where we are implementing our change, we typically will do so within a time period called the maintenance window. The maintenance window is going to be a predefined time period. And this is typically going to be during off-peak hours. So whatever your normal hours of business are, your maintenance windows will typically be during the overnight hours when you don't have as many users or activity on the network. When we will perform all of our system updates, hardware upgrades, any types of system configuration changes, all of the different aspects of a system change. And we do it during the maintenance window to also perform our routine maintenance, such as normal patching, antivirus, anti-malware updates. These can all be things that we also do during the maintenance window for our overall change. Give some type of notice of a scheduled maintenance window. Typically, this can be done through a posting on your website or an email to your employees if it's something related to business. And the change management process will also create documents that we call Standard Operating Procedures, SOPs. Standard Operating Procedures is the general term that we give to the documents that will outline all of the step-by-step processes during the change management process. We can use our standard operating procedures to make sure that we have consistency for any future change types. That way we can make sure we're following industry standards and that we are doing the appropriate security within our own organization. Now we're going to transition in the second half of this episode and discuss some of the technical impacts that we need to be aware of when going through change management. First, we're going to discuss allow lists and deny lists. An allow list is sometimes also called a white list. This is a list of all of the approved users, devices, and IP addresses that are allowed to access our network resources. Allow lists can sometimes be impacted by changes to our network configurations. So we always want to double check to make sure that all of our access control lists and firewall rules are still in place after any change management process. We also want to take a look at our deny lists. A deny list is also sometimes called a blacklist. This will be a list of users or IP addresses, websites specifically prohibited from accessing our network. And our deny list will block access to malware, suspicious IPs, and others. And whenever we go through change management, we want to double check our deny lists to make sure there have not been any changes to what was previously prohibited. Sometimes an attacker can use an issue within our system to change configurations on our deny rules to create new openings within our network. Next, we're going to discuss restricted activities that are prohibited during certain periods. We use restricted activities with our maintenance windows. Whenever we are making any type of change to a production system or installing a new operating system release or downloading new software, restricted activities will prevent different things that users can do on our network while the change is being implemented. That will identify specific restricted activities, and then we will communicate those to our employees and our users so that they understand that they cannot access certain types of network resources during our maintenance windows. Another way that change management can affect our technical systems is through downtime. Downtime is the period when a system or a device or an application is unavailable. Downtime can be planned, a defined maintenance window, or it could be unplanned where we have some type of service disruption or outage. Downtime is something that we want to avoid. It has a very significant impact on our business operations because we lose the ability to access data, devices that allow us to transmit and receive data on our networks. Because we need to understand the scope of all of the different ways that the change is impacting our network. If there is any type of disruption or failure, we can have some type of proactive look at how much downtime would be acceptable for our business. Another aspect of change management on the technical aspect are restarts. And restarts are when we have some type of software or application service that has failed to continue working. And to restart an application, we have to close open version and then restart the service or application from the beginning. With a service restart, we are applying some type of update or change to a software service or process. Many times these will be the automated tasks conducted by software when we launch them. An application restart is when we will have to restart an entire application or software program to apply changes or updates. Typically, we do application restarts after we have a new software patch. We have to restart the application so that the new security configurations can take place. We typically will do restarts for both services and applications during our maintenance windows. This can be a good way to include some of our routine IT maintenance. A legacy application, it's the term that we use to define any older software or hardware systems that are no longer actively supported by their manufacturer. Some older Microsoft Windows operating system types like Microsoft XP are no longer supported by Microsoft as far as security patches and updates. This would be an example of a legacy operating system. We may work in a business where we have certain types of hardware or computer systems that are specific to a task. A lot of times you see this in some of your older utility organizations like power plants. And anytime we're going through change management, we want to see how the change process will impact our legacy systems. Because we don't have the vendor support for the system, any failures are going to be reliant on us to fix them. What are our currently legacy applications and hardware systems? And if there is some type of impact, we want to make sure that we are identifying any issues with compatibility after we go through the change implementation. We're also going to want to take a look at dependencies. And a dependency is when two components of our networks rely on each other to run properly. Think about a website. When you go into a web browser and type in a domain name, you are able to access a website. It'll have text and images and hyperlinks and all of the different components of a website. But within that website, you have two different components that work together. You have HTML, as well as other functionalities like JavaScript and cascading style sheets, CSS, that all work together because they each have some functionality to produce a website. Each of those is a dependency on each other. You have to have all of them working properly to get the expected output. With change management, we have to identify any dependencies for the systems that are being impacted. We want to make sure that we can identify proactively any disruptions or failures that may occur because of the change to one system. Whenever we have any impact to our business processes or our technical aspects, we want to make sure we have good documentation. This will be all of the records that we keep for all of the different changes, the approval process, and all the different test results. This allows us to keep a record of all of the changes we have made, so that if we ever have to go through an audit or compliance, we have the paperwork that shows that we have gone through the proper steps. We also will want to make sure that we are practicing version control. Version control is when we have a record of all of the different changes we have made to our software code in an application. Now, many times version control is done on the back end, and we just see the updates to the software on our device. But version control allows us as an administrator, if we have some type of issue with a specific version of an application, we can use version control to automatically roll back and revert to a version of the application that was working properly. We can identify specific times in the version control process so that we can go back to the last known configuration that worked properly.
That will conclude our discussion of Section 1.3, Change Management. In our next episode, we will move on to the first half of Section 1.4, and our topic will be encryption. We thank you again for following along in the episodes in the course, and wish you best of luck in your studies. Enjoy the rest of your day.